Hello and welcome to this presentation about the undergraduate applied psychology degree at Glasgow Caledonian University. My name's Chris Hand, I'm the programme leader for the undergraduate degree, and what I'm hoping to do in this presentation is explain a little bit about who we are as a department, a little bit about what our programme involves, and a little bit about what our undergraduate degree will offer you the opportunity to do once you've reached the end of that stage in your journey. Towards the end of this presentation, I'll give you a list of contact details and contact information so that if you have any follow-up inquiries, you know who to go to and where to find them. I thought it was important to start by giving a little definition about what is psychology because it's such a huge topic. It can sometimes be a little bit difficult to understand exactly what we mean when we say psychology. And this kind of definition is taken from our governing body, the British Psychological Society. And some of the key words here are this sort of idea of scientific study of the mind and how it dictates and influences our behaviour through communication and memory and thought and emotion. So although that's a very broad definition, I think that kind of encapsulates the main things that we do as psychologists and the main things that we are concerned about. And that real key word there is scientific. That sort of scientific method underpins everything that we do. You might be wondering why we've got the title of applied psychology as opposed to just plain old psychology. And that's because we are very, very proud and we have a clear emphasis on how we put research into action and how we take psychology out of the textbooks and out of the theoretical and out of the laboratory and actually use it in the real world. And I'll give you examples later on how exactly we do this. But we obviously value the importance of theory and research and all these really, really important things. But what we make our sort of principal focus all about is how we take psychology out into the real world and how we can use our knowledge of psychology to better understand the world and to better make positive change in the world around us. How do we do this? So psychologists, again, are sometimes a bit of a misunderstood bunch. It's not always obvious, what they do. There's a lot of stereotypes about what psychologists do. So in the next couple of slides, I've selected some examples about the types of things that our students do, that we do as staff, and that we do as a discipline. So we do as psychologists help people with their mental well-being, so things like depression and stress and trauma and phobia management. But we also look at things like families. So for instance, what's the impact of a parental divorce on children of all ages, or indeed of adult children of divorce. We look at how to help people recover from brain injury or stroke. We help people learn new communication strategies if they've suffered impairment through head trauma. We make sure school pupils and students are being taught in the most effective ways, and indeed that our own students are being taught in the most effective way. And we help teachers in the classroom in identifying why children might be struggling with their academic or personal or social development. We also try to make sure that people are happy at work. So we have occupational psychology as a whole discipline. We make sure people are working at the best of their ability, and that those two things go together, that we can get a happy balance between satisfaction and performance. We help understand accidents, so looking at human behaviours and human factors that might influence accidents. We work alongside the police, the courts, the prison service, so that they work effectively for all participants and for all involved in those systems. We work with the police service. We help athletes and sports people perform better. and we get involved in health psychology, for example, trying to help people manage their weight, manage disordered eating, and ultimately try to work with various stakeholders, community groups, to try and improve things like social justice, health, well-being, and happiness throughout the international community. There are a number of areas of psychology where graduates can train additionally to become chartered. And chartered psychologists typically fall into these kind of 7 domains, which relate to sport and exercise, clinical psychology, counselling psychology, educational, forensic, health, and occupational. So these types of chartered psychologists are probably what are sort of stereotypically thought of when people think of psychologist or psychology professional. So these individuals would typically be working with clients and organisations in order to improve things like performance or organisational structure, or educational outcomes, or health and well-being. And typically speaking, the undergraduate degree is the first step on the journey to becoming one of these practitioner psychologists. But it's really important to stress that a vast amount of our psychology undergraduates use their psychology degree to unlock a sort of rich array of career opportunities. Not everyone who starts off as an undergraduate psychologist goes on to become one of these chartered psychologists. And in the next slide, I'll give some examples of the destinations that people go to out with the typical chartered routes. So again, following on from the undergraduate degree, many psychology students go on to do academic research through something like a master's or a PhD to become researchers either in academia or in industry, or go on to teach at college and university level as lecturers. We have a number of undergraduates who go on to work in the police service or go on to work in the National Health Service. That's a really, really popular destination for our undergraduates. We have students who go on to work in the social work service, in mental health nursing, to go on to do additional training to become therapists and counsellors, or work in human resources, people services. And again, just thinking off the top of my head about some of my peers from when I was an undergraduate and from where our graduates have gone recently, we have students who go into marketing, international travel and tourism management, events management, the armed forces, finance, commerce, retail. It's one of the beauties of the psychology degree is that it's not actually particularly tie into any one discipline or destination, because the key skills that you develop are so sought after in so many fields, that psychology students go on to have these really diverse and really interesting paths, and it's always fascinating hearing from our recent graduates about where they've gone and what they've done. So in terms of studying at GCU, what I'm going to go on now and tell you about is a little bit about our programme structure, a little bit of the nitty gritty, and a little bit about entry requirements. So in terms of our Department of Psychology, we've got around about 30 individual members of academic staff, and these staff are drawn from the domains that I spoke about earlier. And I think that's one of the things that sets us apart as a department from some of our local peers, is that many of our staff are actually practicing chartered psychologists in these applied domains. Although everyone who works in the department has a strong academic background and robust academic qualifications, I think what sets us apart is having this real practitioner experience. So the students on the undergraduate degree are learning from people who are actually, doing this type of psychology, working with clients and working in the field. And I mean, I think that's something that if you were to speak to our students, it's always received really positively. And I think it creates a really exciting and, a really dynamic department. The fact that we've got these practitioner psychologists from all these different domains working together as part of the same larger team. The main course that I'm going to speak to you today about is the BSc, or the BSc Honours Applied Psychology, which is our undergraduate pathway. But this is only one of the programmes that we offer. A number of our undergraduates go on to stay with us to do these additional postgraduate qualifications, and we're also joined by undergraduates and mature students from other disciplines and other institutions at postgraduate level. But again, it's a real strength of our department. I think that all of these courses kind of relate to one another, and that there's really clear pathways for those of you who may wish to do postgraduate study to stay in-house on either our forensic psychology course at MSc level, or our taught doctorates in sport and exercise, health and counselling. We have a really good set of facilities that underpin our applied psychology research. So whether this be in terms of things like emotion research, whether it be in terms of things like augmented reality and Oculus Rift, which we use with our undergraduate students, as well as our applied psychology research, whether we're doing biopsychology research in the lab, where we gather things like heart rate data, skin conductance, and sort of biological performance data. We have in-house digital recording and editing facilities, which can be really good for things like interviewing and focus groups and observational research. We have small private project cubicles for people that are maybe doing the type of research where you need to really carefully control the environment for things like sound and noise and distraction, and maybe the more experimental type of research that some of our staff and students conduct. And we have dedicated computer laboratories, which are frequently used for in-class research methods teaching and assessment preparation, and can be booked out at programme level so that we can protect time and space for our students. For example, in the past, what we've done is we've used one of these computer labs as protected space with protected time for our final year honours project students to work on their write-up and work on their data analysis. I've chosen one example of our research equipment, which is used as part of our teaching at undergraduate level, which is something called a cold presser. And a cold presser is most commonly used in pain research, whether looking at chronic or acute pain. And what it basically involves is participants submerging their hand in very cold water, sort of typically between 0 and 4 degrees Celsius, and we measure various sort of physiological and psychological responses to this. And again, that's something that forms part of what we call our research informed teaching. So we want you to get, in this case, literally hands-on experience with the type of research that's ongoing within the department. Again, it's that thing about applied psychology, taking it away from just the textbook or the journal article, and this is just one example of the type of thing that we do, with the undergraduate students being very active researchers within the programme. So the BSc Applied Psychology and the BSc Honours Applied Psychology are 3 and 4 year programmes respectively, typically for students entering at level 1, although I'll mention later that there are direct entry routes for students to enter the programmes at levels 2 and 3. And our degree is ratified by that British Psychological Society that I mentioned right at the start. And this is kind of the gold standard for undergraduate psychology degrees in the UK. It typically means that your degree would be recognised by postgraduate providers and employers. And we are very, very proud that our undergraduate psychology degree is BPS accredited. And it's just a reflection of the quality of the teaching, the quality of the learning opportunities and experiences that we provide here. Our students who complete the BSc Honours Applied Psychology degree would be eligible to become chartered members of the BPS graduate basis for chartership. And again, many of our students either join as student members during their journey towards completing the undergraduate programme or upon graduation will take up membership of the British Psychological Society. The programme structure is such that we have 2 trimesters per year. Typically they run from either late September or early October until January, with a study break sort of falling over late December and early January, and then again from late January through to typically mid-April. And within each of those trimesters, students are typically studying on 3 distinct modules. In terms of live contact, i.e. where you are interacting with your peers and your staff members in real time, it tends to be between 3 to 6 hours per module, and that fluctuates depending on the module, depending on the level. There are times at which students are working more independently outside of the classroom by doing things like reading and working on coursework and assessments, and there are times where the contact is a bit more intense. All students are provided with an individualised, personalised timetable, and that is typically available before the start of the academic year, so that people can plan around things like childcare and employment and travel, and all these really, really important things that we know run alongside the typical student journey. In terms of assessment, we've got a really rich and diverse portfolio of assessments. It's typically a mixture of coursework and exams, and the way that's kind of structured is that earlier on in your degree it tends to be much more coursework, and then it kind of progresses towards a bit more of a blend of coursework and examinations as you get to your senior levels. So the types of things that we do include lab reports, where you collect data, you design studies, you write it up, and you critically evaluate your work. Students do presentations either as individuals or as part of groups. We have some quite niche assessments, like making infographics and posters to sort of convey psychological information in really sort of everyday language, so that can be consumed by members of the public or children, and so on and so forth. And we do the standard kind of traditional written exams, but we also have kind of quite nice and very modern exams, such as open book exams and what are called scene exams, where you essentially get to see the questions maybe a couple of weeks before you're actually due to deliver the exam itself, because these are all ways of assessing different skills rather than just out and out memory for facts and figures. So we're again very, very proud of the richness and diversity in the assessment formats that are involved in our undergraduate degree. Something again that we're very keen to make clear is that all students who pass the modules, regardless of which grades they pass with, will be eligible to go into honours level. So it is not the case that you have to get a B average or a C plus average in order to get into honours, as it is at some universities. Students who pass the modules will get in. So for example, if we have 120 students entering at level 1 and all 120 pass, then brilliant, everybody progresses to level 2. And then if those 120 at level 2 all pass, all 120 go to level 3, and so on and so forth. We don't have a kind of selective entry to senior levels based on performance, as may be the case at some of our other collegiate universities. One thing that really sets us apart, and one thing again that we're very proud of, is the fact that we can allow our students to graduate with a specialism to reflect their own personal journey within the undergraduate programme. So depending on the optional modules that our students choose, and depending on the topic of their final year research project, it is possible for a student to leave with a BSc Applied Psychology with honours, with a specialism in an area such as counselling or health or forensic or sport and exercise psychology. Now, this is potentially important for students who wish to go on to postgraduate study in one of these disciplines, or go on to employment in one of these kind of domains. But more importantly, it just allows our students to put a little personal touch onto their BSc Honours Applied Psychology Award. So every student who completes the required number of credits and modules will be eligible to leave with the BSc Applied Psychology degree, but the specialism just allows our students to choose to have this additional little bracketed annotation to the degree, to just give a little bit of reflection about what it is that they did while they were with us. At level 1, we have 5 out of 6 modules as core modules. So we cover very diverse aspects of psychology, ranging from personality and individual differences through to psychology in the courtroom and health psychology. We have an emphasis in looking at research methods, digital psychology, such as people's behaviour online safety, online well-being, and we give students the option to choose an optional module in their second trimester. In level 2, again, we've got that real emphasis on the applied value of psychology and the domains where we can see psychology. For instance, in clinical settings, in forensic settings, in the counsellor or therapeutic relationship, in health and sport and exercise. We look at political and cultural psychology. Again, we've got an emphasis on research methods. And we look at things like cognitive and developmental psychology. Again, students have an option to choose a module out with the core psychology modules, and those are typically things like biological sciences, languages, social sciences, interprofessional education. At level 3, again, we're focusing on research methods, because research methods kind of underpins everything that we do as psychologists, and this is where we cover the core areas in distinct detail to satisfy that British Psychological Society, as well as allowing our students still to take an option. You'll notice here that I mentioned exchange as an option in trimester A, and I'll come back to talk about international exchange in a few moments. At level 4, the final year research project crosses 2 trimesters, and that's where students are working with a member of staff as a supervisor in order to create and develop and execute an independent research project. We have a core module of developmental psychology that all students undertake in trimester A, as well as our options, 1 option in trimester A and 2 options at trimester B, and it's these kind of optional module choices that enable students to leave with those specialisms, again reflecting the personal nature of their journey. Additional options in terms of the languages, it tends to be European modern languages that are offered, and in terms of study abroad in that third trimester of level 3, first trimester of level 3, we've had students go to places like Canada, the Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, USA, Australia, and that tends to be quite a popular option, and tends to be an area where our students really thrive and excel. In terms of entry requirements, we would always encourage you to check the university website for the most up-to-date information. I'm not actually going to go through these in minute detail because again, these are only typical entry requirements. We have students join us with quite diverse qualification sets. I mentioned earlier that we have the opportunity for students to join us at level 2. Again, this advanced entry, and often that is students who have undertaken an HNC in social sciences or with higher education credits from other institutions. We also have the opportunity for students to join us at level 3 of the programme, and again we would just encourage students or applicants to check the website for the most up-to-date information, but typically we're looking for an HND in social sciences with specifics to do with the graded units in psychology. I'd like to thank you very much for listening to this presentation and for thinking about Glasgow Caledonian University and our applied psychology programme. We are very proud of what we offer at the institution, and I'd like to finish by just reminding you that we are here to help you in making your decisions. So I've listed my own email address here and Dr. Lana Ireland as the Deputy Programme Leader, and Dr. Mary Fleming as our Admissions and Marketing Tutor. And I've listed here some websites and web links that take you to the application process and our student inquiries and admissions contact details, and I'd just like you to be aware that you can find us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter and on Instagram, and that's a really nice way to find out about the most up-to-date activities that our staff and students are getting involved in. So please feel free to follow us and to engage with us via those social media channels. Thank you very much for your time.